We've noticed, people who've seen your roles and even kind of from this conversation that you have a gift for accents and dialects. The English and American accents are pretty much givens to get work, but I've heard you do a Spanish accent, as in Bolero, a German accent, I believe, in the Bridget Fonda movie. I've heard you do a Russian accent. I want to let people know that in addition to all of your on-screen performances, you've also done, a ton of purely voice gigs for animation and video games. So I'm sure in those situations that skill has served you well.
Comes in handy, yeah. I got a lot of that, I think, for the most part, from, I was talking about harmonies in the first part of this show and hearing my dad, sing harmonies all the time, and he had the most fun. He had more fun with the harmonies than the melodies, but I came from a very, theatrical family, not necessarily from the theater, but just theatrical in terms of the way they all carry themselves, and they kind of act everything out. If they're telling a story around the dinner table, they'd be like, well, here's Auntie Betty around the, dinner table, we got the bacon, cheese, butties, and, everybody would start to act out who the people were in the particular story that they would be trying to convey.
Right.
And everybody would literally outdo each other. It would be about who could outdo each other more and bring the story more to life by coming to life with these characters and these voices.
My boys want me to read stories to them, and as an adult you want to read something once and move on, but they want to hear it 17 times or read it again immediately at the end. And that's what I started doing. My favorite thing to read to them is Dr. Seuss, because it's more fun to read out loud than something a little bit more simplistic. And that's what I started to do, not to the degree you can, but I would do different characters and accents, and I'd do a cowboy one time, and I would do Peter Lorre one time. They didn't know who the people were anyways. They didn't know if it was a good or bad.
Oh, Peter Lorre is a great one to do. He's so much fun. Let's hear a little Peter Lorre.
Rick, you've got to hide me. Rick!
That's great. You got my vote.
Oh, cool.
Very good.
The movie of yours that I want to see next is The Devil's Violinist, which is about
the Bernard Rose film.
Yeah, it's about the violin virtuoso Niccolo Paganini. Now, we're recording this in March, and that movie hits Netflix in April, so I don't have long to wait. That one looks intriguing. I'll be mentioning this again at the very end of the podcast, but I really want to encourage everyone to visit your website, because you have sample video clips posted there of pretty much all of your film and movie roles, as well as anime, video games. There's even a nice chunk of The Odd Couple live on Broadway. I really enjoyed perusing those. In fact, Mike and I were doing that before he got you on the phone here. We were looking at a few of those. It's really an impressive website, and it's a great way to be able to hit on these different characters without having to necessarily go find the TV series or the movie. And there is a clip there for The Devil's Violinist here with Jared Harris, who everybody knows now from Mad Men. And also, I didn't realize it, but I went back and watched that TV movie. I think it was a TV movie, The Two of Us. He actually plays John Lennon in that.
Yeah, he was wonderful.
Yeah. So I haven't seen it, but I know that your role in that is almost like a Salvation Army Plain Jane type of character. So
very much so. Yeah, she's a sort of I would say an 1830s. It's very one of those sort of women that really epitomizes the Industrial Revolution. What was going on in London, where people were moving out of the countryside into the factories of London because of the economy. And it was just a very interesting time in history, and obviously music was a very big part of the 1830s, with Paganini coming over and people having religious beliefs, very strong religious beliefs, and assuming that he was playing the devil's music. My character in particular was not an advocate of what it was that he was doing, and but she's quite a funny character. Primrose Blackstone is her name, and she kind of reminds me of like a black crow. She sort of looks like the Statue of Liberty, but she's all in black.
Yeah.
And she's got kind of like this cool black bonnet. And she has this she plays a big drum. She bangs a big drum, and she walks the streets of London with the Ladies' League of Moral Strength. These sort of 12 women who, we go. I mean, women did in those days. It was a very early rise of feminism, and people. What was great about that time is people, not unlike the 60s, people really spoke their minds, and they had the freedom to go out on the streets and say what they felt and bring it to the people. So the thing I really liked about this character was getting to really dive into that time in history, especially in London. And, the air was just blackened with soot, and it wasn't necessarily the healthiest time to be in London, but it was a very exciting time to be in London.
Well, apparently the deal with Paganini was he was so good that it was one of those, you must have sold your soul to the devil, and apparently he had sort of satanic-looking features like maybe a Keith Richards type, and,
Definitely.
Yeah, and as a music fan, and a fan of yours and a fan of these other people, I've always wanted to see that one, and I wanted to see it before we did this, and it's going to be like maybe a week after. But, I can't claim to have seen everything you've done. But let me ask you this, what would be, can you narrow it down to one particular role or one particular performance that you think is sort of thus far, I mean, you're still young, but you think is thus far the pinnacle you've attained so far as an actress?
Funnily enough, there was a play that I did called Entertaining Mr. Sloane. It's an English play, Joe Orton. But I don't know if you ever saw Prick Up Your Ears, but it was a film about him, about the playwright, and Gary Oldman played him. But he was very ahead of his time, and he wrote this play that I think Malcolm McDowell actually played Sloane in. I think it was 1972. It took them like 5 years to actually put it on the English stage because it was such a taboo subject. But again, about this working class family, a brother and a sister, and they both sort of fall in love with this young lad called Sloane, and they're both sort of fighting over him. It's a very a very interesting subject matter, quite dark, but there was a dark comedy, and we did it for only about a month in Los Angeles with an actor called Emrys Cooper and Ian Buchanan, and I loved the role because I played this sort of middle-aged woman with, who was fat, and she had this very high-pitched voice, and I got to, play somebody who was really quite heavy-set and frumpy, and they gave me these sort of birdseed. They patted me. They put like birdseed in my bra, and I just started finding myself swaying on stage most of the time, because she had a whole different rhythm and way of moving. So I would say that role in that play, which I was very honored to have won a Broadway World Award for Best Actress, which I was really proud of because it just was an amazing experience. And another film I did with Armin Mueller-Stahl that Bob Balaban directed called The Last Good Time. Those are my two my favorite play and my favorite film that I've done.
I'm glad you tossed a movie in there because all of us, regretfully can't see the performance you mentioned that ran in L.A. for 1 month. But I appreciate the honest answer and the reasons you gave. That's interesting.
And the late, great Maureen Stapleton, who's also in The Last Good Time, and Lionel Stander, who aren't with us anymore.
Yeah, I'm going to go check that one out for sure. Well, just to put a capper on the acting topic as we segue back into music here, I just wanted to say that even though theoretically, on paper, Nicole Wallace should be considered more of a threat, I think I'd actually be more afraid of Karen Arnold.
Really?
She could be pretty intense.
She's very, very intense, but she's a teenager, and you got to think about the hormones that were pumping in our bodies at that time.
I'm just saying there's some scenes where you're staring down another character, and often it's somebody shorter than you, so you're like looking down, and you look absolutely fierce. I wouldn't want to tangle with you. I take my chances with Nicole Wallace rather than face down Karen Arnold when she's like in the zone.
Well, I'll take that as a compliment, Dan.
Well, I think it's amazing that you can be that, and then you can be Betty Jo, and then you can be, the frumpy, high-pitched character. I mean, it's great that you have the versatility and the range to do all that. I think the fact that you're also an actress is a real asset in terms of inhabiting the various characters and points of view in your songs. Speaking of which, returning to Not TV, There's a song called Caroline that's come up a couple times, which is a little different from the other tracks in that, it seems to be intentionally less complex, both musically and lyrically. It's more about, the beauty of simplicity. What inspired that song?
The first word that comes to mind is Virginia Woolf. I saw that film, The Hours, and saw Nicole Kidman's performance as Virginia Woolf, which I thought was just astounding. I loved her nose and just the way she morphed. I couldn't believe it was Nicole Kidman. She's always been a huge hero of mine, Virginia Woolf and Georgia O'Keeffe and Joan of Arc, and I did several. I have a lot of heroes who are also men and women, but just something about Virginia Woolf's depression, her sense of the relevance of life, and her writing. How she would just really how she wrote. I mean, what she left with us after she did die is so profound and pithy. And Caroline, I think, is about somebody who's thinking about drowning themselves or just turning to stone, just sort of like really questioning the relevance of life. And so the narrative voice in me with that song was really just somebody coming to save somebody that I knew. And there's a few people that I've known, that are ready to really end it all, and somehow really shedding a light on the fact that you understand why they would want to, but something about you letting them know that there's another way, and if they can just hold on. I think coming from a place of understanding, sometimes when somebody's in a place of wanting to maybe not be here anymore, can really help, because everybody really, what we all really want is to be seen and to be loved, and I think so. There's a lot of that in that song.
Well, let's check it out from Not TV. This is Caroline.
If I walk all day, I'll make it to your room. I'll try to get there soon. I'll wait till the dust has settled and I'm coming down an escalator stair. I'm racing stone.
We got a little more music still ahead, but before we get to that, I want to make sure everyone has your website, which is oliviadabo.net, not .com. That's OLIVIADABO.net. As I said, it's an excellent site with a lot of useful information, and I recommend going to the media tab and watching all those film clips from her various projects. You can also find the music video for a song called Revolution, which I'll be playing shortly as our exit piece. I want to mention that this hard copy of the CD is available at CD Baby. That's where I got it, and that's where you need to go to get it. It may or may not say that on your website. I'd already bought your CD before I went to your website, but I just want to make sure people have that bit of information. But in terms of the Revolution video, it starts out with a clip from an old black and white movie with Laurence Olivier and Merle Oberon. I'm guessing that's Wuthering Heights?
Absolutely. Heathcliff, when I was a little girl, my father used to say to me.
Well, in the song, you mentioned having black and white vision and wanting to turn gray eyes to blue, so it definitely ties in lyrically. We talked about your guitar playing. I mean, there's a rhythm guitar part that's very forward in the mix, and you're playing a Fender Telecaster in the video. So did you write that song on guitar?
Yes, I did.
Ah.
It was. It had to be on guitar because it just definitely. It's the only way it could have come out. It's pretty straightforward, just rock guitar song, really.
There's a visual motif of you walking around like a modern setting, but wearing a French Revolution era costume. Well, more of your contrast, but it creates the effect that that you're like you're out of sync with your surroundings, and it looks like guerrilla filmmaking. So I get the impression you weren't working with extras in those scenes. So conceptually,
No,
were you just trying to
pigeons and innocent bystanders in downtown LA.
So you're like trying to walk up on them and get their reaction on film, huh?
Yeah, why not?
But lyrically, this one also seems to have one interpretation, but I think there's a little bit of wiggle room in there too. So it was about kind of being born in the wrong time.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people can identify with that. People have come up to me about that song. They're like, they are very much get what it's about, and I think it's pretty self. Mm-hmm. I think you kind of listen to it, and it's pretty straight up, probably more straight up than any other song really on the album. And
musically, it has this sort of, we mentioned Pink Floyd earlier, it kind of has a Pink Floyd, Alan Parsons, was kind of derivative.
It's a little stony there, Dan.
Also, back with the arranging, there are a few spots where the track just falls away, and you have these dissonant piano notes counted back in where you'd usually hear, drumsticks on a hi-hat, like tss, tss. You've got these piano notes. So another interesting arranging idea.
That's Patrick Leonard.
Mm-hmm. I thought it might be. I think in the video, like you're doing it on a harpsichord or something, or
yes.
Well, everybody can go see for themselves because we're going to let you guys all go do that shortly. I recommend everybody check out that video. It goes without saying that I expect everybody to rush out and buy this album if you don't have it already. I want everybody to get it because, frankly, I want to encourage you to put out more. I know your acting career keeps you busy, but it's been a little while since this came out. Are you banking material for another studio album?
Yes, definitely. It's there's been a lot. I've written so many songs since then, and some I've actually been getting into scoring a little bit also for films.
Nice.
As a musician, as a piano player, and so I'm keeping very busy as a songwriter. And there's definitely a second album on the horizon, should I say?
Well, Olivia, on behalf of my listeners and myself, I want to thank you for calling in and sharing all of your insights with us, and of course, all of your excellent music. You're an extremely talented individual, and it's been a real pleasure talking to you. Well, it's been a really incredible experience talking to you, Dan, and I really want to thank you so much for having me on your show. And I am now. You have a new big fan with me, so thank you. I'll be listening to your shows that will be coming up. You're like a music encyclopedia. Well, I think Don Breidup's term was music nerd, so I think you and I have connected on that thing. I'll get a Betty Joe costume and we'll trick or treat together. Okay, sounds like a fun Halloween experience to me. We're going to go out now with yet another interesting track from Not TV. This is called Revolution. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you next time. So long, everybody. So long.
a sailor under a perilous sky. My vision's black and white. I'm all deaf and dumb, but I've got some wisdom. When I get home from my day, my sails are starting to fray, and I don't know where I come from. I've got no marrow in my bones. I need a low-down emotional rescue, 'cause something's lost and something's known. A city grown up inside a revolution. I might have grown up inside by now. A city grown up inside a revolution. So I can be as brave as you. Oh, mama, tell me what to do. I like to listen to music. I like to catch the late show down on Savile Row. And when I'm sober and watchful, I like feeding the pigeons. I like to see how they play. They don't run away like you did. Am I an undiscovered continent? Am I a map with roads that have no end? I wish I wasn't such a loaded gun. Just wanna break bread with Jesus at the Vatican. I should have grown up inside a revolution. I would have grown up inside by now. I should have grown up inside a revolution. And turn these eyes from gray to blue. Oh, Papa, tell me what to do. Inside, it's a long ride. What was it you said to me a long, long time ago? Stuck in my mind, I fell behind. Guess you'll never know. Summertime and summer's by, the seeds were almost sown. Every day's another play. Where's my Romeo? When I was bad, you thought I was beautiful, and in a heat wave I felt so invincible. I just ran, I kept running. I was serious, but you were jive talking. When I was bad, you thought I was dangerous. I could be casual, and I could be merciless. When I was bold, I was so fabulous. Made you delirious and breathless. Was a killing time, still got a wild imagination. I've come to find I need a little bit of patience, 'cause peace of mind it never comes when you need it now. And it's alright, you got to cry just a little and stand in line with all the beggars and the losers. I'll sit in silence, pay the devil what I owe him now. What you feel, what you feel. Hey, what you feel, hey, what you feel. When I was bad, I was oblivious, I wasn't obvious, wasn't furious. And down the freeway we'd crash into other cars. Another innocent accident. Was I just curious on the inside? Was a killing time, still got a wild imagination. I've come to find I need a little bit of patience, 'cause peace of mind it never comes when you need it now. And it's alright, you got to cry just a little and stand in line with all the beggars and the losers. I'll sit in silence, pay the devil what I owe him now. Got a wild imagination. I've come to find I need a little bit of patience, 'cause peace of mind it never comes when you need it now. It's alright, you got to cry just a little and stand in line with all the beggars and the losers. I sit in silence, pay the devil what I owe him now. Yeah. Sit in silence, pay the devil